YouTube, Crystal General's Comments of Pop Culture. Today, guys, I'm doing this video finally, bringing you guys my investment spreadsheet. So, a lot of you are aware of this from hearing me talk about it and showing off the books that I got recently. And just to get a little backtrack on what was going on was I had some Starbucks stock, ended up taking it out or taking some out and reinvesting into some comic books. So I did a spreadsheet here about with all the details of every single book I got, and you're going to see the rate of return on each book, see what the market's been doing for each book over the last 6-7 years. And then I also have here, right over here, we got Starbucks stock and what it's been doing for the last 6 years. So I know this isn't pretty to look at, but at least you get a visual of what's going on, and I'll try to walk you guys through it to the best that I can for those of you who aren't members people, so you can kind of get a clear idea of what was going on. So let's go into the books that I got. I wish I could have incorporated like pictures within here, but let's start. If you can see the cursor, we have here year, my price. The year is, of course, the value of the book. But we got the title of the book up here, ASM 300. ROR is rate of return. Inhumans 1, so forth. So then we got the price that I paid for it, the grade, and the given value for fair market value for each of these years. Now, I did check a couple resources. So these prices are matched to Overstreet, as well as a couple of online sources that I like to use. So they are extremely accurate, and the prices are based on about a 9.2 grade. All right, so keep in mind all the books that I have aren't necessarily 9.2. But let's just go into it. Let's start with looking at Amazing Spider-Man 300 here. All right, guys. So a lot of you were asking, "Oh, what did you pay? What did you pay?" I got this in an auction on eBay, and I was surprised with my price. So for those of you who know, it is an 8.5 graded CGC, and I paid $275. Now these prices are including shipping. So this one was $275. Now I saw um, others in this grade that weren't slab going for higher than this, so I was lucky to have gotten this, I believe. Now let's look at what the market's been doing here. So going back to 2011, the value for 9.2 was at 140. Then it jumped up to 150. Then it went back down to 120 in 2013. And as you can see in the ROR, these are the percentages gained or percentages lost. So we had a 7% increase, then a 20% decrease. But then in 2014, it jumped back up to 25% increase at 150. Then it went to 160, then to 220. And this is where the last few years is where it's just been jumping up. Then we saw a huge increase of a 70% increase in 2017 up to 375. And right now it sits at about a 420 and a 9.2, 9.4 probably. I've seen some slab 9.8s going for over $1,000 on eBay. So I would have to say that for an 8.5 paying 275 CGC graded, pretty good. Now the average rate of return over these years is a 20%. So basically what it's telling you is that every year it's kicking out another 20% growth on your return on average. So basically, if you were sitting back in 2011 and if we were estimating correctly, we would say that this book will average a 20% growth each year. That's 20% on top of each other every year. That is huge. All right, let's go to Inhumans number 1. This is an 8.5 CBCS graded slab book. I paid, and again, including shipping, I paid $40. Let's look at what it's done. 17 to 18 to 22, back down to 20. I forgot to make that a red, negative 9% drop. But then in 2015, it doubled, 100% increase, $40. Then it went up to $90 in 2016. And then it went up to 100, and then 110 is where it currently sits. This book has had an average rate of return of 38%. That is huge. So again, I think at a $40 8.5 graded book, I think I did fairly well. I think within, even though you see a constant, besides in 2014, even though you see a constant increase right here, I think if you looked at month-to-month numbers of some certain sites online on what it was doing on eBay, I think it did kind of get bloated a little bit when the show was coming out last year. But it's stuck. It is stuck. It hasn't really dropped yet. So happy about that. All right. Over here we got Marvel Premiere number 1. This is, of course, the first true appearance of Adam Warlock. Now mine is a 6.5 CBC S grade. Purchased it including shipping at $85. So at a 9.2, 9.4, $90 way back in 2011. Then it saw some steady increase to 100 and 120, but in 2014 it took a 33% dip, went back down to 80. But then the next year, and I'm assuming, I don't know if this has anything to do with the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie coming out, or maybe at this point there was hype of the next Guardians movie, but nobody really knew of the Warlock hint at the end of the credit scenes in Guardians 2, because that was a couple years away still. But you saw this huge 69% increase. And then again in 2016, 85% up to 250. But then it didn't do anything over the next year. And then right now it sits at 275. That is an average rate of return of 23%. Still huge, huge. All right, now we got Fantastic Four 66, which is the first, basically the first hinting of him in the cocoon, him being Adam Warlock. And then in 67 is the first appearance of the cocoon. So 66, this was a 6.5 raw book. 6.5 is based on what the eBay seller was selling it at, but it's a pretty nice copy. I think it probably can get anywhere from probably maybe a 5.5 to a 6.5, but it is around, it's a fine book. So I paid 31, including shipping. I think that was a really fair deal. Because and here where you get, I mean, this book, being that it's a Silver Age, it's going to drop incrementally, like per grade. Like a 6.5 to a 7.0 is going to see a really big percentage of increase. So, when you're thinking, oh, you only paid $31, but look at these 200, don't get it twisted, because a near mint book that's a semi-key Silver Age book is going to jump to those high values at a high grade. But still, the thing I want you to look at here is the rate of return. I mean, there's been positive rates of return every year, and it hasn't been extreme, but over the last couple of years, it has. 2017, 25% increase. 2018, where we're sitting now, 21% increase. Overall, an 11% increase rate of return. So you still see the value of this book going up. Now, here's Warlock number 1, his first solo series. I couldn't get information for these last few years, but over the last 5 years here, this book, and now I don't have the Overstreet for 2014 on this book, but for some reason, the 2 sources I found online show this book doing a huge jump from 2014 to 2015 here. 122% increase. Then another solid 40%. And over the last couple of years, 7% both years. So I don't know if that number is bloated there, but again, we still see this book increasing slowly. I think paying $29 for an 8.5 raw book is still a pretty solid deal, especially knowing that he's going to show up in a movie in the next couple of years. I don't know if it's going to be next Avengers or the next Guardians or whatnot. He's going to be there. I definitely think this book is going up. All right, let's look at ASM, Amazing Spider-Man number 51, second appearance of first cover of Kingpin, first appearance of Robbie Robertson. So we got a 4.5 raw book. And again, this is another book. I paid $50 for this book. Don't necessarily look at these numbers. This Silver Age key is going to be a high value number for a high grade. But what we want to pay attention on are these rates of returns. We have a steady rate of return over these years here, but we can see in 2017, we had a 42% jump. and then another 8% this year. So basically, again, if we're just looking at percentage, this book has been gaining some steam here, and I don't see it dropping anytime soon. Maybe this percentage shot up because we saw Kingpin show up in the Daredevil series a couple years ago. So who knows? I hope to see him again. I think, what's his name? I can't think of his name. The Italian actor, Garofalo, right? Who was in a lot of solid movies in the 80s. I think he did an excellent job as Kingpin. So, all right, let's go to Wolverine #1 of the miniseries, Volume 1 here, guys. This is the one book that I thought I might have paid a little too much for. And, I saw this book. It was an auction, and I don't know why I jumped on it, but I thought it was a pretty good high grade. And I gave it, it's a raw book, and I gave it a 9.0. I asked around in the community when I showed it off. Some people said 8.5, some people said 9.0, some people even said like 9.4 just looking at it in the video. And I could give it a little press. It has a couple spine ticks, but that's like it. I definitely think it could get a 9.0. But as we see here, at a 9.2, 9.4, I mean, right now it's sitting at a $90 value. So, I mean, you could still say that it was a good deal. But we saw this book has some good rates of returns, 2012 through 2015 and 2016 with a 14%. But it's kind of stagnated the last few years. I mean, 13% over the last year, though. I mean, it's solid. Overall, 12%. It's still gaining ground. But the thing with me is when Wolverine and the X-Men come into the MCU, I don't know. I have huge expectations for this book to blow up and become, I don't want to say a ASM 300, but I think it's going to jump to a couple $100 book as soon as the X-Men are announced in the MCU. Hands down. That's just my opinion. All right, we got Amazing Spider-Man number 265, which is the first appearance of Silver Sable. So I got this book as an 8.5 CBC S slab with shipping, $42. This book hadn't really done much. We can go back to 2011 to 2014. It was sitting at $16. Then it took a drop, a 6% drop, 2015. But over the last few years, we've seen a steady increase, a big 40%, 47% jump in 2016, then a 14, then a 12%. Overall, a 9% increase over these last 7+ years. I mean, hey, the main thing, I mean, if we calculated the average rate of return for the last 3 years, it's going to be even bigger. It's going to be sitting around, 20%. So I'm looking for this book to, keep gaining momentum and not drop. So, all right, guys, what we have over here is Infinity Gauntlet #1 and Infinity War #1. But I got the whole sets, and I just didn't want to map out each issue. But for those who know, I got basically one set of Infinity Gauntlet in a bidding war for like $48 plus $12 shipping, near mint on eBay, $60 for the whole set. Then I met a guy on Craigslist and got the whole set near mint Infinity Gauntlet and the whole set of Infinity War near mint for $60 together. So let's just look at the #1s of both series. And I'm saying mine are about a 9.4. But look at this for a 9.2. Just 6-7 years ago, this book was at a $3 to $4 book. Then it jumped to 8, 15, 25. It took a little dip back down to 20 in 2016, 25. Now it's sitting at 35. That is a 48% increase for Infinity Gauntlet #1, and that's just #1. So #1 alone is sitting at 35. I got the whole set for 60. Same with Infinity War. I mean, it was just a few dollar book, 6.6, and now it's sitting at 8, which is a nice little increase, 17% rate of return overall. But to know that I got the full series of this for 60, knowing #1 sitting at 35, knowing I got the full set of this Infinity War and another set of Infinity Gauntlet for another 60, I mean, hey, it is what it is. All right, guys, let's go look at Starbucks now. This is what I was doing with Starbucks. Now, this goes back to 2013. If I would have went back to 2011, this average rate of return would have definitely increased a little bit. But the thing I wanted to show here is that Starbucks has been kind of stagnating. And as you can see here, going back to 2013, we got a 9% rate of return, 6%, and then it jumped, a huge jump to 59%. But then it dipped to a negative 10% loss, and then it jumped back up to 18%, 2017 to this year. Now it's down another 8%. And it's just been sitting on the market like this, going up, going down, and it's been stagnant for the last few years. Really, if you think about it, right now it's sitting at less than it was, over 3 years ago. But the thing to look at is the average rate of return for my Starbucks stock was 12%. Now, if we look at the portfolio, and I call this a portfolio over here of all my books because it's a diversified investment. I didn't just put all my eggs in one basket. I put it in multiple things. Just like if you were buying stocks, you put it in multiple stocks. It's a portfolio. Together, this portfolio's average rate of return is 23%. I forgot to change this to a percentage. But that 0.23 is a 23%. So if you're looking at just the average rate of return over the last 6 years for these books, next to my Starbucks stock, my average rate of return for Starbucks was 12%. My average rate of return for these books is 23%. I'm almost doubling my average rate of return by changing my investment over to these books. So that says something. Now, I'm going to make a part 2 of this video. And that part 2 is going to be looking at what they call the geometric mean. And for those of you who are like, what the hell does that mean? What that means is it's a calculation that allows you to map out what we are going to forecast the returns are going to be in the future based on past data. So what I will be doing, because we could sit here and say, okay, over the last 6 years, these books together have brought in almost a double rate of return of that of the Starbucks stock. But are they going to hold up? Are they trending upward or are they trending downward? Is Starbucks stock trending upward or is it trending downward? So I'm going to do a part 2 video where I discuss just that. But I think this was probably a lot of information in one video already where it might be giving some of you people a headache that don't really deal with numbers. But this is very vital, guys. Regardless of if this is kind of confusing, I want you guys to focus on the key pieces here, because if you collect comic books and you collect comic books to invest, you need to just understand the key points that I'm trying to tell you. And that is looking at rate of return as a percentage and what it's doing every year and where it's sitting right now. And for those of you who are thinking about, well, what are my options of investing? Should I go invest in the stock market? Should I invest in something else? Should I invest in gold or silver or cryptocurrency or whatever it may be? I'm telling you that by showing you this, comic books right now are a very, very lucrative investment. And it's in the numbers. It's in the data. And the numbers don't lie. It doesn't lie. And the market doesn't lie. So I can go get into that and explain why that is, but I'm not going to do that. It is what it is, and I'm showing you guys here. So I think overall, I did pretty solid with my investment. I can't wait to do the geometric averages to see if it's going to be trending upward. We shall see. But for right now, I hope you guys got a clear understanding of what these books have been doing. And hey, if these are books that you don't have, maybe they're books that you might want to look into. Or if they are books that you have, maybe you can look at this and say, oh man, I'm so glad I have these in my collection. Shoot, you may have bought ASM 300 5 years ago and paid $100 for it, which would have a larger return on investment than I have, because I paid $275. So, all right, guys, I will leave it at that. Please leave me some feedback. Let me know if you guys understood this and if you enjoyed it and if it was helpful. I want positive, I want constructive feedback, anything. Let me know what you guys think. Please look forward to part 2. And until then, guys, thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe if you have not yet done so. Till next time.